it over to Alyssa, and perhaps Alyssa can ask Heather to introduce herself, and yeah, we'll go from there. So I will stop talking.
Well, thank you, Jillian. I know you're our Zoom expert and got this ball rolling, and we really appreciate everything you've done. And thank you, Heather, for joining us and offering your time with us tonight, because I know you guys are getting ready to head out the door on a birthday cruise. And so I know what it's like trying to get everything packed up and get out the door. So we appreciate your time. So, you know, I loved this book. It changed my life. And I'm looking forward to discussing it with you and everyone else here tonight. So again, thanks for being here. And I'll let you say just hello and introduce yourself to Heather before we start.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I don't know. I always feel weird introducing myself. Like, how do you say, like, I am ordinary. I don't even have wine tonight because I'm about to go and I'm struggling with that. Because I was like, well, I'm going away on vacation starting Thursday, and the wine will be pouring from that moment on for the next 2 weeks, I feel like. And so I was like, maybe I should just dry out from I think not every day should be a wine night. So, but as you're drinking your wine, it'll make me really super jealous, but it's fine. So when you see me sipping on my big dumb cup, that's what I'm doing. Just know that it's not even vodka.
Okay. Well, it's good to stay hydrated before vacation. Hydrated.
Yep, absolutely. I know I never know how to describe myself because I'm very much like everybody else. I didn't think I was I mean, we're all special. Like, we're all extraordinary, and we're all fascinating, and we're all curious people. But I wouldn't have thought that I would be sitting in a Zoom and that anybody would want to attend to listen to, our lives. And so I completely, and I'm humbled by it, but I'm completely aware that you're here not just for me, but you're also here out of love and admiration for Ryan. So I really do appreciate everybody being here, and for buying the book, getting the book, reading the book, and finding something that resonated with you.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, we're all really, really glad that we can be here tonight. And I'll just go right in because I know our time is limited. So the first question, in your book, you said that you have always loved to read and that you and younger Ryan would oftentimes sit together and read. Have you also always loved to write? And in addition to writing the daily Facebook updates while you were at Sun Peaks, did you journal in addition to your, your updates on Facebook? And then if you did journal extra, do you journal now?
For me, reading was really important. My dad, military, come home, and his biggest thing was to watch whatever was on BBC or CBC, and kids never liked that. But if you wanted to spend time with my dad, you had to be quiet and read. So I think that I developed a love of reading, maybe more out of necessity, just so I could sit in the same room with my dad, but certainly came to love it afterwards. And then, I did love to write, and maybe it's because you have this imagination. When I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. There wasn't a lot of toys. I used to play with my Barbies and make up tons of stories, and then really just loved that sort of medium. But again, you never think that it's something extraordinary. You just love to do something. I never thought it would lead anywhere, except getting me really good grades in English, anything that was essay bound. And I'd have to say that I was really good at writing. I still remember in grade 6 writing a story. We had to do something about olden days or something like that. And so I wrote this sort of, Oregon inspired crossing the plains thing. And I'm really good at the writing part and the descriptive part. And I'll put all of the effort into that. And then at the end, I'm like, oh, I only have three more words left. How do you end this? You know what I mean? Like, so my endings are never good, right? Like, they're just rushed. They feel rushed. But for me, the journaling, and I don't even know if I thought that's what it was. I mean, I just started writing one post, and then I wrote another one the next day, and then it just, and then I was almost like I was bound to it. And that
Mhm.
was my journaling. It was a lot to think about what I was going to write for the day. I was trying to plan ahead, what I wanted to talk about. And then you sort of throw that to the wind if something came up and you really wanted to sort of address it. And so I didn't do any journaling outside of that. I just did it for that particular, for that day. And then now I do a lot of writing in my work, but mostly has to do with social media and advocacy work. So I don't have as much time to journal, but I tell you, when I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, which always seems to be the witching hour for me, I can write a
Mhm.
TED talk on a lot of things. I just can't remember what I said the next day.
Isn't that the way it is? Like, our minds are so awake at 2.
Yeah, I'm brilliant at too, by the way.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So at what point did you decide to write the book? And then how did that idea materialize? Like,
I probably wouldn't have thought about writing a book. I mean, it was enough to write the post, and it was really cathartic for me. It was good to get my feelings out. It was really good to talk about Ryan, to capture that. I think I think it was the members, like our group is such engaged and supportive people, and they kept saying you need to do that, and maybe that wouldn't be enough to write the book or to put that into words, but um just the stories, like I think differently about this, or it resonated with me in this way. And
mhm,
I thought that was really cool, like something that was so tragic, but filled with some, maybe some inspiring stories, um, was enough for other people. But I think overall, what then pushed me over that precipice was like, this is will last long after Scott and I. It's a testament to Ryan. It is not his life, because there's no way I could share that without him having that input, but I share so much about him that he will live long after Scott and I are around on this earth. And that, to me, is so important.
mhm. And I think that's what's so lovely too about the book, I just, that's just such a special thing, and it will be, it's timeless. It will be there
Yeah.
forever. So, definitely. Can you tell us a little bit about like the process when you were writing the book? Like, did you have a special routine or like a schedule or a special place that you'd go? And did you have to take like emotional breaks? You know, um, how
Yeah.
long did it take start to finish?
I think I struggled with that a lot of times. Like, the posts were there, and I really struggled in July of the very first year, 2018. So I had been writing a post every single day. And starting July 1st or 2nd, we had our trip that we were taking that was supposed to be for Ryan's 21st, Jordan's 18th, as well as her high school graduation. And so that was sort of planned. Um, and um, we had booked, and so I knew that that trip over, I wasn't going to be able to write. And then when we were on vacation, it didn't seem fair. The girls had given up so much, whether they knew it or not. They'd given up so much by us being in Sun Peaks. We just really wanted to be present, and I wasn't going to be able to do that if I was going to be writing. So I
Mhm.
had to give myself permission not to write every single day. I had to give myself permission to let it go. I think my biggest fear is that, because people were so engaged at that point, that if I didn't write, that Ryan's group would not fall apart, but people would just lose interest. There'd be nothing else for them to come to. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't know at that point that the group would survive long after, even if I didn't write anything, and it's become this powerful group of people that really want to support one another. So I was so afraid of that. So it took a while, and then that whole first year, I would write when I felt like I had something to say, or if I wanted to update. And I didn't really have a process, I think, until COVID. I had a whole month in January that I wasn't working, and my husband said, if there's if there's going to be a time, there's no better time than now to write it.
Mhm.
And so if you're going to do this, take the time to do it. So I sat at my kitchen table during the day. I would write. Did I have to take breaks? Yeah. When you write something, I cried all the time. Like, you know, I
Yeah.
always thought if it made me cry, it has to, I'm sure the audience who was reading it will probably feel the same. And so you do have to take breaks when you're sharing something so emotionally. It was like visceral. It was like it tore you up inside.
Right. I can only imagine because that's how I have felt reading it. Like I had to take breaks.
Yeah.
Um, Not in a bad way, but just it's just so emotional. And I know the comments on the Facebook group too, everybody has said the same thing, you know, that as wonderful as it is, it's so, you know, hard emotionally, and you do need to kind of take some breaks. I'd just sit in my chair and cry. So, um, but, um, but it's wonderful. The next question, has writing the book had an overall positive impact on your life, would you say, like to now today, like looking back, and is there anything you'd change about the book in hindsight?
But I mean, I guess the obvious answer would, I wish I could change the ending. I wish there
Right.
was an ending. I wish I didn't have to write the book in the first place. I guess maybe that was it. Um, I I think the book made me more reflective, right? Because you have to really look at yourself when you're writing. I had to think about that when I was remembering the past and my regrets and my guilt over certain things, um, and to allow some grace. Because I think when you're looking back, sometimes, you know, time does give you some separation and allows you to look at things maybe through a different lens. But I think I just wanted to punish myself. I wanted, because I didn't have Ryan there. I couldn't apologize for, you know, trying to rush him, or I wanted to do his makeup on Halloween and he wanted to get back to school and he ended up crying before he went back. Like, what mother makes their child have tears before they're about to go to a Halloween party and he's smearing his bat makeup or something? You know what I mean? Like, just all of those things. You just sit there, and you just think, this is it. This is why, you know, you are the way you are. And so, uh, I did become more reflective. I had to give myself some grace. And when you read through, and I'm like, it wasn't, it didn't have to be that way. It's how I perceive it in my mind, but that's not necessarily how it necessarily was, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
and the things that I used to think about myself, like, you know, like when I say we're all extraordinary, maybe I didn't quite feel that way. I think, all through my life, you know, there's, you know, people are like, oh, you talk too much with your hands, you talk too much, you know, you're aggressive. You know, I speak because I think that I always felt as a child, my voice was never heard. And so, this was a beautiful platform to share a voice, but not necessarily always about myself, but about somebody else that I loved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. And, um, you know, I think sharing those raw feelings, whether it was guilt or, you know, all of those really, you know, grabs at us as the reader. And we, you know, really, really, I mean, I feel like I know you, you know, just,
Yeah,
you know, never met you.
I know, and people do that all the time, and you know, I love that. Like, because I think that's humanity. I think that anybody that were to write this would have the same. I don't think that's just something that's alone for me. I always find it interesting when people come up to me and they're like, I feel like I know you, and I love the hugs. I love when they come up. I really do wish they would just introduce themselves first, because they're like, Heather, and then they go in. I'm like, I just really want to be able to say, you know, hi to you, especially because a lot of times I'll remember names on the Facebook page. And so I will sit there and go, oh, so you wrote about this and this and this, or you've been on there. And so I just love when people do come up and at least introduce themselves. And then then I'm like, oh, it's really love to meet you, Kathy. It's really love to meet you, Joan. It's, you know, thank you so much for reading the book. And, you know, I always want to caution people. People always think they know me and they think that I'm really nice. And sometimes I probably am, but not all the time. like, you know, I'm human too. I remember being in Sun Peaks, and I'm with a bunch of girls that are up there, ladies up there, and we were sitting around and they were having wine at one of the restaurants, and the topics went right off the rails. I can't even tell you, it was it was right off the rails. And so you're sitting there and having a moment, and then well, she was a server there, but she came up, she goes, I saw you at Kahilti, and I'm like, no. And we were talking like that. Introduce yourself to me first so that I can make sure that you're not listening to us swear or talk about something super inappropriate, right? So
Hey,
Sorry,
yep.
just to jump in, I think that that is really interesting for you to say, because reading the book, I was like, this woman is out of my league. She is 1,000 times smarter. She is so intellectual. The word choicing, the way it's written, I just was very, I don't know, I got very self-conscious of myself, because I was like, wow, this is such an intelligent, strong woman. And I think that that's something that you mentioned about being not able to share how you were feeling, and you were silenced when you were younger. And I was like, I wouldn't have known that, because I would have thought for sure you had been someone who had always been allowed to have all of this creativity that had grown into this. So that's really interesting for me. I just wanted to share that, because yeah, I was so sure. I have my own picture of you, my own vision of the person you are, and I'm sure everybody does. We all have made this up in our minds of exactly how you're going to be and the person you are, but you're human at the end of the day. So you're allowed to swear and have wine with your girls and let loose.
oh, come on, I
But
have stuff in my teeth half the time. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like, oh, you're talking to somebody, and then you go to the bathroom, like, why didn't someone tell me I had pepper? Like that's not nice,
you need to
right?
check your girlfriends. Your girlfriend should have
Yeah.
told you.
And you know what, my friend Nancy, you know, my cohort, with every time we go, like, she knows the best and the worst of me, right? And so she always laughs when she's like, they, you know, they have this vision, and I'm like, I'm so unlike the vision. But I don't think you know, I'm also really honest about that. Like, I am not perfect. I probably yell way more at my husband. What, I don't call it yelling, it's just elevated nagging, maybe. It's a reminder that he could be better at the things that he's doing a lot of the time. But you know, like, all of us are exactly the same way. And I think we all came from something. Like, I can't imagine anybody's life was near perfection. And so, you know, there's the stories of me growing up, you know, based on two parents that also suffered lots of trauma, that came from families that suffered a long life of trauma. And so, you know, where I got to now, I think was a beautiful combination of the strengths of both my parents, even though they might not have recognized that at the time. And then, you know, meeting Scott, like, I think that was pivotal to me. Like, so we've been together 29 years, and we'll be married 29 years in September. And I think when you know unconditional love like that, and maybe like my kids will know it because they're told every single day that they're loved. There's not, and that's one of the things I will never, ever regret about my relationship with Ryan. The moment, whatever happened to Ryan on that night, I will tell you that I know deep inside my heart that he left knowing that how much he was loved by both his father and I. So I have no regrets on that at all. Both of my girls will know unconditional love. We've broken whatever cycle that was there. But Scott gave me that. And I think sometimes when you have that feeling of unconditional love, you're not seeking anything else. I think then that's your baseline. That's, everybody should have that baseline. And then from there, I think you can soar in so many different ways, whatever that looks like for you. But I think if you do not have that baseline, you're constantly striving just to get that foundation. Sorry, completely off the rails.
No, I think it's great to share that. I think that's a really nice insight, and I agree with it. Just again, personalizing, and I think a lot of us personalize different parts of the book, and so yeah.
Well, and I love that in the book I feel like you are really honest and you keep it real. You know, so, which kind of leads to our next question. It takes so much bravery to be vulnerable on such a public format, but in doing so, your Facebook posts and book have allowed strangers, almost 64,000 and counting, to fall in love with and advocate for Ryan, you, and your family and other missing persons. Do you feel some peace knowing that through your writing, Ryan will be remembered forever and that he changed the world by inspiring others to be more present, kind, and selfless in their day-to-day lives?
I think I love so 2019 Scott and I went with friends to Hawaii. They have a timeshare there. So we went and I think Hawaii is like this most magical place. And we had been there a couple of times with Brian. And I remember one night we went to bed, and in the middle of the night, it's like I had this dream. Well, I had the dream, but it was like it's like a movie playing. Like, so it's like you're lying down, but you can see it all happening, even though you can't participate in it. Much different than the other dreams where you feel like you're in it. I felt like I was watching it. And in this one, it had Ryan through some various stages. And I remember, so this was almost a year and a half later after he had been missing. And for the first time in this dream, I heard his voice, like exactly, not like as he was as a child, not it was exactly, and I had never heard that before. I couldn't remember it. And in this dream, I could hear his voice. And so I was like, oh, Brian. And I was like, I'm so sorry, baby. I'm trying to find you. I'm trying to bring you home, that sort of thing. And he's like, Mom, just keep doing what you're doing, because in the end, you'll save someone's life. And I thought, what a, egotistical thing for me to think about. Maybe in my dreams, I'm still egotistical. I don't really know. But I thought, when you have time to think about it, I'm like, it doesn't have to be anybody outwards. It could have just been me. Like, I'm going to save myself from this tragedy. But I look at it and go, being vulnerable, I'm honest to a fault. Sometimes I overshare, and maybe that's another part of having trauma when you grow up, is that you didn't have a voice, and so you tend to think that the words are so important to you now that you will never get in a position where your voice doesn't matter, because you will say the words that you need to say. And so I think that's what I do. But I mean, being vulnerable has had its moments, certainly in the first 6 months. The comments that came, because I was so visible on Ryan's page, Scott was not. And the comments that I would get in my messenger, or the fact that they would create a secret group and then they would just take my post them in this group, and then they would make fun of what I said. And that's not for people to feel sorry for. Like, that's just when you go.
That's gross, though. Sorry, that's gross.
I mean, it's, if they want to do that. I mean, it's not like people don't bully or something across the lines. Our children experience this every single day on social media. I felt like I wasn't participating in it. I don't know why. I couldn't understand why somebody would choose to do that. But we all know that there's going to be people out there that just choose cruelty any way they can, right?
It's a reflection on them,
right? But that's it's tough if you've never been in that sort of situation. You're like, oh, I wasn't expecting it. And I was lucky, because even at that time I had Indigo was on the site, and she was monitoring, and so we really had to sit there and think, how can I continue to be myself, my true authentic self, without feeling like, oh, I better watch what I say, because if I say that, someone's going to, you can't go in thinking that. I continued to be authentic. And it was good to have the support of people like Indigo and Claudia and Pam and Gina, and like, they just were these amazing women that just sort of said, you can do this, and we're going to do whatever we can to kind of get you there and support you.
I love that. Those are your unicorns.
My unicorns.
Right? Yeah. And just think, if you had let those negative people get to you, and you wouldn't have had them, you know, helping you stand tall and strong, you would have, I mean, I just look at that group, you know, now Ryan's group, and it's just nothing short of amazing.
And
And if you would have just quit, you know, because it
there were
was
moments,
scary and hard,
right?
you
There were
wouldn't have.
moments when you know, I'm doing what I can, and it's all about Ryan. It was never, I never thought that it was tied to me. It was always about sharing Ryan's story, sharing his awareness. And then, you know, to find out somebody that you that worked for you, that you were their manager, and then they just went on and on Facebook, and in a town where everybody knows you and they know who they're talking about, and just you know, I think some of that was one of my lowest points. Like, I just thought, who, like, why do I have to shoulder this alone? Why,
Right.
you know, who will defend me? Who will stand up for me? Who, you know, how can I keep doing this? And having to deal with this. It would be so much easier to hide under a rock and not say anything. But then, you know, you get to sleep, and you have some bright lights in there. And that particular night was Jordan's boyfriend, Max, who was very vocal. And he's the one that actually defended me. And I went to bed feeling a lot better the next day, and thinking, I can think that I can get up the next day, and it isn't about me. And I'm going to have to, you know, use that spine, that steel in my spine that my mom and dad infused in me, whether they knew it or not. And I'm doing it for Ryan.
Yep. Just like in the book, didn't you tell him, you know, when he fell off his bike, you got to get back on,
No.
and right?
Yeah. Yeah. The hardest thing is standing back up, right? And you don't think those are lessons that but I just remember him being so frustrated, and just saying, like, the hardest thing you ever have to do is just to stand back up. And so that was another particular day where it was hard. But you know, and I say Max was my defender for sure, but it's not like I didn't have, you know, my daughters who made me tea, and tucked me into bed, and, you know, did all of these things. And that was another, I think, for me, a difficult moment, because I think that the girls have had so much taken from them, and I struggled with adding more. And I thought, if I break down, it makes them fearful, and I don't want them to look at life in fear, or look at situations and be afraid that I'm going to break down, and that our lives are going to be more changed than what they are now. And so sometimes I even find now, crying, I really don't like to do that in front of the girls a lot, because I'm, even at 24 and 18, I just I want them to have strength. I want them not to be afraid.
Yep. Always looking out for your kids and protecting them, when, you know, as a mom, that's just what we do, right? Okay. Boy, there's so many I'm trying to think.
I'll go faster this time so people can ask questions.
Oh yeah, no, you're doing great. I'm just trying to think what I would like to, all right. This one. I love how you describe your kids as perfectly imperfect, and shared stories of how Ryan teased his sisters relentlessly, raced around the house with friends, left shoes laying around. Being a boy mom myself, your stories really resonated with me, made me smile, and made me miss him so much for you. You have allowed us to see your similarities. I guess we've already kind of talked on this. Do you think this is one of the reasons, because we identify with you because you have been so vulnerable? Do you think this is one of the reasons why so many people have followed his case and, you know, fallen in love with him?
Yeah, you know, it's lovely to me to have people say how much they have taken to him. That, yeah, because I think that he could be anyone's child, or brother, or cousin, or whatever it is for them. That there's things, and I think that's what that's what the normalcy is. That's what ordinary is. Like most of our things, somebody will have experienced that in some form or fashion. So for me, it's a remembering of all the stories. Again, like, you know, we'd be walking with Juliana, my youngest, and she was 12 at that time, and we'd be walking along and she'd be saying, remember when Ryan did this? And I'd be like, oh, you're right. And even I went last Saturday night to Ryan's teacher. She was his English teacher, but we've known the families for quite some time. And so she was like, do you remember the chaos you caused in high school? I was like, what? And she goes, yeah, I was working at WestJet and the girls were younger and there was a tornado warning. I don't even remember this. There was a tornado warning that was coming into the Beaumont area. I knew about it because I was at the airport. And so I texted Ryan because I was like, you need to get home and get your sisters. And I'm trying to think about where he can go to make sure that they're safe because it was a warning. So apparently Ryan's telling his teacher, I gotta go home, there's a tornado. And then I don't know if that sparked it and he was texting people or something. And she's like, you can't, like, we're not letting you leave. You can't go home to the girls. And he's like, you try telling that to my mom. And she goes, it was huge. And I was like, I don't even remember that. Like, I don't even know. Then again, he was like in high school. He's never going to tell me. I was like, how did it go? And he probably would have said, it was fine. I just left. You know what I mean? Like, so I think there's all sorts of stories that oh, am I on? Something's
You're
happening.
good.
Okay, sorry, it's asked me if I want to convert. I was like, I don't know what I'm converting.
No, it's not this kind of a meeting, no.
We're not converting anybody.
I don't have time for that, sorry.
You know, talking about the memories and stuff, parts of the book when you're talking about his friends and like how fun it is that, you know, you were, well, first off, it was comforting for me to read that, you know, he's had such a wonderful friend group and they all, you know, came out and supported and were searching for him. And that's just so touching. And I know you had said how wonderful it is that they would go and meet you guys at the cabin and hang out for the weekend and kind of have a Ryan weekend after, and how special it was when you'd hear them telling stories about him, and oftentimes some of those stories you'd never heard, and how cool that was for you, because it was, you know, a way of you to even like learn some new things about him. So I guess we were wondering, you know, do you still get to do that? Have the kids all kind of grown up and moved away, or do you still like every year be able to have them at the cabin over the summer? And like his son Peake's friends, do they stay in touch with you, or?
That's kind of, I mean, twofold. You know, do we talk to the roommates? No, we don't. I do think that they're part of Ryan's page. I do think that Ryan still mattered to them, even though they might have only known him for 2.5 months. We still are in contact with his one friend, Cooper, that you know, we share and we marvel at his stories. Ryan's friends that he's had since he was a kid, yeah, we still see all the time. Of course, Beaumont's small enough, so you'll see them. Scott saw a bunch of them last weekend, but they do come out. They make a point to come out in the summer because they want to. We host them, they'll come, you know, and it doesn't have to be about Ryan. I think they like to be able to share it. And I think it's a good opportunity for them to gather together in ways that they might not have as they finished high school, universities, and have moved on. Yeah, you know, it is bittersweet. Certainly now, 6 years later, that, you know, I've graduated, I've got my master's, I'm working on my PhD, or I bought a house, we've got engaged, or like all of those things that I know that as time goes by, more milestones will come for them. And there is a part that I of course I love it. I love listening to them, and so well deserved that they're getting these milestones. But I sit there and wonder, as more time passes, where Ryan would have been at this stage. And I guess I just don't know. It's not like, you know, when Ryan went up there, that we knew that he was going to go this, and that he always had a passion for this, and he was going to do this, and there's this person he was going to marry. So you could sort of guess how that would have taken, his path that he would have taken. It's a complete mystery to me. I have no idea what he'd be doing, who he would be doing it with, and what his life would look like. And so there's a bit of a gap there that comes from that. But
Mhm.
we still see them and love them. And and I think people have given us support. People actually have given my friends so much support. And I think sometimes Ryan's friends get lost in that mix. And they're the ones that knew him in stages that we did not know the best. And you know, I wish that they had had the support as much as we did.
Mhm. Yeah, because you know that they were hurting too, you know, in their own ways. So hopefully they were able to band together and you know, I'm sure that's very healing for them, that being able to still get together and do
And
those
they
things.
still love him. They still talk about him and they still miss him. And what a testament to my son to have
Mhm.
such loyal, and they're wonderful, wonderful people that that cared so much about him.
Yeah, yeah. That quote, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are,
Yeah,
you know?
that's
So
perfect.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really cool. Just another wonderful thing to know about him. Um, let's see.
It's
Okay.
also interesting, sorry, Heather, that you can take this and look at it from so many different perspectives now, not just from your own and what your feelings are, what your children's feelings are, what your husband's feelings are. But I love that you've been able to take it and look at it from Ryan's friend's perspective. That takes a lot. That I like that would just when you said that, it's true, especially with boys. If we want to gender stereotype just for a quick second here, like boys are not the most upfront with their emotions historically and able to share their feelings and of grief or whatever they're experiencing. So I think you're giving them a platform to really mentally treat their emotions that are associated with the grief by getting together at the cabin, by having an open door policy for conversation and learning and following about their lives. Like I think that you are really doing a lot for them, probably more than you even realize. Just to help them to cope and to deal and to grow. But yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that's something that it takes a very strong person to say, okay, it's not just about me. Let's look at these other people too. So good for
Mhm.
you. I
I
like
think
it.
it honors Ryan though. I think
Mhm.
that I've always looked at how can I honor Ryan, and I can't honor him like if I'm insulated, like an insular sort of thing. Like I want to honor Ryan through his friends, through his connections to his sister, his cousins, his family, you know. We his girlfriend Juliana was such a big part of our lives that she comes over all the time. She is now a part of ours. She will always be a part of ours. She's like another daughter for me, and so I you know can't wait to see where she ends up and who she marries. And you know, I told her that I don't expect her to allow me to give her away, but I do have to do a speech. Maybe not mother of the bride speech, but because her mom's pretty wonderful. But I expect to have something in there, right?
Right, right, right. Um, okay, so the next question. You have such a gift for writing, weaving love, positivity, forgiveness, hope, and humor throughout this heartbreaking story. We were inspired by your ability to focus on the blessings at the end of each search day, despite your feelings of disappointment and fear. Would you consider yourself having always had a glass is half full mindset, or is that something you feel you developed out of necessity?
I probably did. I think when we look at my relationships, mine and Scott's, like I will never say he's pessimist unless I'm mad at him, but he's a realist. So he helps keep me sort of in check and sort of saying, you know, the sun will not always come out tomorrow. It might be a little, you know, more dreary. But I think just based on maybe that was a coping mechanism growing up, is that if I couldn't see the bright side of things, then what is the point of moving forward? So I think that it was just always what I thought. Now that probably gets me into trouble because I was like, oh, the sun will come out tomorrow. So, you know, let's let's drain the savings and take a holiday. Like we can always make more money, right?
Cheers to that.
We're just gonna, that's the way we've always thought, right? And then you'll feel remorse about it after, but I always think, I wish there was a formula. I wish I could tell you that Ryan's group was a formula. I wish I could tell you that if you wrote every single day, if you use these words or these particular phrases, if you make decals or you make 3Ds or you say this to people when they say this, if there's a theme, I wish I could tell you that all of those things as a formula will get you the engagement that you need, that will propel the awareness and keep people supporting. But I never knew that. Everything that I wrote and everything that we've done with Ryan's Facebook page and everything that we've contributed has always been very organic. We had no idea what we were doing, and it's very authentic. I don't know if you can recreate that. I think you should create that on your own. But having said that, I do think that there should be a process in place for missing people, right? Like, so maybe you can't write the way I wrote. Maybe just using the phrases and hoping that you could chat GBT it and it'll come. It doesn't get the feeling that comes when you speak from your heart. And I think it's important to speak from your heart because people always know your intentions. People read because you've touched something in them. And I don't know if you can generally take somebody else's thing, but overall, you know, I do think that there has to be something in place for missing people, some more consistency across the board so that everybody gets the same level of engagement in their own organic, authentic way. But the process and the foundation should be absolutely the same.
Right.
That was my little soapbox. Sorry.
No, and I think that's, you know, such great advice because I do feel like that's the reason that we all feel like so connected, you know, to you and Ryan, and, you know, you were so honest and everything was so heartfelt and the stories about him. And it really does give everyone the opportunity to, you know, feel like they know him, you know, and if others can know, well, you know, like you said, share from the heart with their stories. I think that's phenomenal. And, you know, is that something through your Freebird organization that you're kind of helping come alongside others that are in the situation and share kind of that, not, it's like you said, not a formula, but some advice in that?
Yeah, you know, I always think that I will say that Ryan's loved beyond measure, you know. I bore him and I will advocate for him till the end of my days. But doing so, there has to be a purpose in this. And the purpose is through Freebird for us is to be able to provide resources and support. You know, and maybe by that we can get enough families and people engaged to look at how the process works overall. And so that there's a consistency across the board on the level of engagement from law enforcement, from media, from your public and your community and stuff like that. So I want to tell you some of the things we've done. I don't mean it for you to follow that because every journey should be unique to the family that's going through it. In the same way I would tell you that you should feel this way when your child goes missing or a loved one goes missing. You're going to feel this. They may not. Some people will feel anger, and some people will not be able to advocate in the same way that I did. That does not mean that you love your child more or less. It's just how you're processing it. But what I'd like to do is more of the letting you know what happens when a child goes missing or a loved one goes missing, is that some of these things like the social media that will go, that search and rescue will eventually go home, what day that looks like, but why this happens and how you can advocate for yourself, that sort of thing. So
yeah, and if they could identify in their own little world unicorns, you know, like I just think like you'd be so overwhelmed in that moment that, you know, to have other people that can come circle around and like you talk about kind of help to started chipping in and just doing what they needed to do, making some videos, you know, somebody made your flyer, you know, just because you do
You
it.
don't know who to trust, though. I think that's what it is everybody's coming
Yeah.
at you at the same time with all this information about how they want to help, and you don't know, are their intentions pure? Because not everybody will have pure intentions, right? And how do you navigate that when you're going through the worst moment of your life? You're feeling
Yeah.
overwhelmed, scared, and grieved, and you have these offers of help that you don't know if you can trust them to be true, right? So
Yeah. And what a horrible situation. I mean, I can't even imagine like feeling so frantic
yeah.
and then almost paralyzed to be able to
And
make
worried that you're making the
decisions.
wrong decision, right? And because
Right.
people will tell you if you're making the wrong decision or what they think, right? And so it should never be left up to the parents to advocate in the same way. Not usually, I wrote a book to talk about Ryan's experience and to share his story, but that shouldn't be the way to keep engagement. That shouldn't be what parents have to do to bring their child home, right?
Right. Right. Okay, well, we can, maybe this goes into this question then. Okay, in the book, you state how grateful you were to the RCMP and other search agencies. However, you did also touch on the frustrations that developed with the RCMP search protocols and their kind of lack of communication and continuity in relation to Ryan's case and job turnover and those kinds of things. Would you ever consider offering some kind of sensitivity or continuity training for officers working on missing persons cases if given the chance to kind of give them that firsthand experience on, you know, what's helpful?
And I mean, there was some frustration, certainly, like almost like the first part of dating. You're tentatively testing each other out. They're trying to see how much they can disclose with, and our relationship is to the point where like we respect them. So I guess we've been dating for a while now. We're not quite married, but we've been dating for a while, and so we know the patterns. I did do a speaking engagement with search and rescue here in Edmonton, outside of Edmonton, September a couple of years ago. And it was about and so what I did was talk about not just necessarily RCMP, although one of the search and rescue was also part of the city police, I guess. My thing was more about talking about managing expectations. So that was that, if you know those ahead of time, I struggled with managing my expectations. I thought, like, when the dogs came in, that they were going to be the be end and end all, because that's what I was told, that they were going, if he was there, they were 110% sure that they were going to find them. I certainly hope they never say that sort of, not this particular group, I shouldn't mention this,
Yeah.
but any search and rescue group should never put that in writing to say that that if their loved one is there that's missing, that they will find them. I think that you're setting the families up for an unrealistic and terrifying reality if that doesn't occur. The other thing that was that I would say, and that what I talked about in this particular speech was egos, letting egos get away. Because I look at it and go, I know my son. Do I know him 100%? No. His friends would add a different flavor to that whole conversation about how well they knew him. And so there's all parts of Ryan. His sisters would add something else. His dad would. So there's a whole bunch of people that will come in and give you a broader picture of who Ryan was. So I will never say I know him 100%. But knowing my son as I know him, I've allowed myself to push my ego aside and say, even though if I think one thing, a lot of the times, I still struggle back and forth. I think one thing a lot of the times, but I have pushed my ego aside and allowed for possibilities, for other possibilities. Because in the end, I always say, when Ryan is found, I'm never going to get a trophy, or I'm not going to stand up and get an award or an Oscar or a Golden Globe or something and saying, gosh, you were the smartest person in the room. Your theory was the one that actually was. No one's going to do that. There's no winners in this. I might have closure, but I will never win. Scott will never win if he was right. There's no winning for being right. And so if I can push aside my ego as his mother then search and rescue can certainly push their ego away when they said, you know, if he was here, we would have found him. We would have found him because we didn't in this 24-hour period. He's most likely not here, because time has shown us and experience has shown us that when you say one thing, you just need one anomaly to happen, and then whatever you thought was true was untrue. And so I always think, manage your expectations and put your egos aside, and maybe don't express with such you know, certainty and determination that something has happened. And so those are the things that I would say to anybody, whether in law enforcement, is that certainly families need, in the first month, they need to know their child's being looked for, their loved one is being looked for. They need to know and have that constant communication. And I would just ask for empathy on that part. Just imagine yourself in their shoes. What information would they want? And I know that you can't share everything, but just knowing that your child is not being forgotten. And I think that was my biggest fear, is when we have the turnovers and the job turnovers, is not that someone wasn't going to be looking for them. I knew that that was not going to happen, but having to explain and wanting someone to care as deeply as the ones that were already there, that they would continue to search in the same vein. Terrifying, because I can't do that. And if they can't, if they won't do that and they haven't done that, what other recourse as a parent do you have?
Right. And then having to like go through the, you know, retelling and, you know, that's got to be hard.
Getting them to care. And again, in our situation, that wasn't an issue. I was just that when I was angry at the turnover, I had to think about why I was angry, and the underlying was fear that my son would be forgotten and that no one would search for him, that we wouldn't be able to express how much he was loved, missed, and he needed to be found, that he mattered.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I don't know if Cheryl was gonna, oh, maybe she left. If time, money, and red tape were no object, is there anything you'd want to implement in the ongoing investigation of Ryan's disappearance?
I don't know if in the investigation, I mean, obviously, if you thought that a certain number, if somebody did know something, let's say, I guess we'll address that. So if someone did know something and there was a magic number, I just wish I knew what that was that would bring somebody out to bring Ryan home. If no one knows anything, I think that if I had the money to find and scour this world for the best search, and I don't mean it like my people are not good search and rescue, but ones that are dedicated just for that I could pay, that would be there for whatever period of time that had to be, and that they had the same skills as our search and rescue people that go out and do it, but they were absolutely dedicated. That's all they did all day long, whatever resources they needed to have, if there was sonar, if there was drones, if there was dogs, if there, whatever they needed, that I had the money and they could just do it for an extended period of time.
Yeah. Well, if I win the lottery, I'll go into you, baby.
Well, now I keep saying that about my mom. Like, now I have so many people to wish that they also win the lottery if I don't.
Right. So if we can all go out and buy tickets on the, hey, does Canada have the lottery?
Oh, we sure do.
Not
do, like you guys,
not like the States.
Oh,
no.
I keep thinking, Florida, I'm going to buy a ticket, and I'm like, what if I won $392 million?
Right?
I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Everybody that came to this book club will get money. Looking at it recording, you don't get anything.
we got to buy a Mega Millions and a Lotto, a Powerball.
Right. So I never know. Right. Like, and it's different across Canada, because I'll go in to visit my my aunt in Nova Scotia, and I'm like, I'll have, and she's like, the lady at the store, I don't know what you're asking for. I'm like, just give me, I don't know, the special. Just tell me how much I owe, and just randomly pick numbers for me.
Right. Oh, okay. So Heather, let's talk about dinosaurs. In your wildest dreams, would you have ever thought that there would be 7,000 dinos roaming around the world What a brilliant way to spread awareness of Ryan's case and empower this community to do something to help. Share with us how the current dino evolved and why you think we are all so totally obsessed with this cute little green Stukasaurus.
Again, he'll be so happy I didn't go with the sexy kitty story as the very first post. Again, I want to say it was all organic. It's not a formula. And because it started early, there was a theme, a tie-in. It was a natural progression of a conversation that, and the very first post that I had, as well as having that on the logo and our t-shirts and stuff like that. It was just for awareness at the time. And again, it was very authentic, and it grew from there. And it was Gina, one of the unicorns, her and her husband and her daughter, they had a 3D printer, and they were looking to do something as a family, sort of together, something, an interest. And the dinosaur wasn't really on that radar. But when their daughter Caitlin was looking through some of the images, she says, "Oh, that dinosaur kind of looks like the one that's on Ryan's page." And so they looked at that, and her husband Dan said, "Okay, I can do a little bit of maneuvering. I can put this here, I can do this, and I can shape it." So he just made probably one for me, and then a couple for every unicorn, I think, is what happened. And if I'm wrong, Claudia, you're going to come up and you're going to tell me I'm wrong, right? So they did that, and then it sort of grew. And then Indigo's like, "I'm going to make it a little QR code. I'm going to have Ryan's facts on it." And then Claudia was like, I wrote this poem. So Claudia was the one that wrote the back and talked about the kindness, which was really important to us, because do I think that Ryan is in Southeast Asia? No, I don't think that that's where he is. But it gives me such joy to watch where these adventures go. And I love to think that if Ryan were here, that he would have been on these amazing adventures, had the opportunity to go on these amazing adventures, that he would meet these wonderful people, inspiring people, and have these fantastic life experiences. But I also think because of Claudia, so that's Indigo's portion, when she tells you about Ryan, so you can learn about Ryan and take him there. And then Claudia is like, really look around in your community, look for the kindness in there, and see what other families are struggling that may not have the same exposure recognition. And if it's no one's missing, and certainly we hope that in these places we don't have it, but look around and see how you can spread kindness, because the world is in such a short supply sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What I love about the dinosaur too is, anyone, at least this is how I felt. You go to the page, which I found on September 4th with that viral post, of the gal that was running, found the dino and posted it. And I was just immediately hooked, and wanted to know more, and was just reading everything I could find on Ryan and looking at all the great videos that you guys had and stuff. And you just feel so helpless, like you want to help. And it's almost, it's horrible. And the dinosaur is a way that people can really help.
They can.
Because we're so far away too.
Yes.
Right. So Alyssa's closer to me than she is to you guys.
Yeah.
And I'm in Ontario, but that, Alyssa, I share that with you. That was my first thing, is what could I possibly do besides sharing the posts or sharing the group's name or telling people about it? Like, what can I do? And I felt the exact same way.
And you're spreading
like you want to.
You're spreading kindness every single time you take the dinosaur, whether you leave it, whether you take pictures, you talk about Ryan's story, you're encouraging people to be kind to one another. And I think how amazing is that?
Yeah. I love the little poem on the back of the card.
No, Claudia's amazing.
I know. Talk about the unicorns a little bit.
I will, because I feel like we only have like 7 minutes left, because
my gosh,
meeting time's down to 10.
Okay.
Amazing women, that didn't really know each other. They didn't know each other prior to coming onto Ryan's page, and then they grew. And I would say, I mean, it took them a while before they even invited me into their Facebook Messenger group. So I'm not, I'm the last unicorn. I don't even think I'm a unicorn. I'm a unican maybe.
Heather's not bitter about us not letting her in at all.
Not at all.
Not mentioning it and everything that I do. But the love and support that they give, and we go back and forth on Messenger, and the way they share their love for everybody, they are just amazing, and they inspire me. I look at them and go, how could I have been a better person? Like, I come across something and what could I do? These women saw something and said, I want to help. And everything they do is inspiring, not just for me, but for other people and each other. And I mean, if you can find yourself even one unicorn in this world, I think you'll have found the most magical creature, and you should hang on to that.
Yeah, definitely. It's been inspiring just watching them and interact on your page too, you know.
That's what I found. A lot of people, when I had posted a picture when I went ice fishing and I took my little dino with me, I told everybody who would listen who he was and why he was here. Excuse me. And I find, like, just the constant kindness on the page makes the page attractive to me. I have a small child. I don't have a heck of a lot of time. And so when I'm doing something on social media, there are pages that I'll be like, okay, I have to double check into, but I love how much kindness is on there and people just saying nice things and people just like supporting each other. And I really find myself making sure that I check that because it's good for my mental wellness and it's for me as well. I tell my daughter, you don't have to be best friends with everybody, but you must be kind to everybody. So it's something that I really I have a strong passion for kindness and mental health. And I think that everyone, like, this group for me has been absolutely transformational as well for, you know, so many reasons, but it's also just like I found, like, Alyssa, I was pulled, like my heart was like, what can I possibly do? Like, you know, and yeah, I'm a good person, I'm a kind person, but then yeah, I find myself struggling with that piece. So the dino is the outlet for me, and as well the book. I've mentioned that perhaps people could share it in their little libraries, put their name in it, ask people to continue to move the book, and that's what I plan on doing. And just, you know, keeping the information out there. And the book is beautifully written. It's not one that is a hard read from a standpoint of, you know, like you want to read it. It's a page turner. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. It is one that honestly I started and I was like, this is really like, who is this editor? Like, who did this? Because it is one that I'm happy to share. I do have a lot of friends that still read real books. I don't believe in reading off a screen because I do it too much for my work. So I like to have a real tangible book. And I found that it is one that I can happily recommend to people and say, you know what, read this. It's really worth the read. So thank you for doing that and bringing that into my life as well, because I love a good book. I love a well-written good book.
Well, thank you. And I know we're probably getting down to the thing, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask
Go
you
ahead.
before I just, because it'll just go right like this. But I know that we asked questions, or you guys asked questions, and I know that you guys didn't really get a chance to maybe discuss or even ask things outside of this if whoever was participating. So I'm certainly willing if people want to do this again after I get back from holidays, if there's an appetite for coming on and asking your questions and sort of having a forum for that, I totally would be open. I might set it up as if you want that as a Zoom, which may be a little bit longer than 40 minutes, and we might not have to worry about that necessarily.
Sure.
But if you guys want to, then just maybe reach out to either Alyssa or Jillian, and then we can certainly do that, because I feel like I talked so much that if you had questions, you didn't get a chance to stay.
Thank you
That's-
so much for offering that. I definitely will take you up on that, and I'll share my email list with you because there were about 32 people who had said that they wanted to have the Zoom invite. And of course, plans change, life happens. So I'd love to invite them to that conversation if that's something you'd like to do as well, Heather. But no,
I'd like to
definitely,
do
I'd like,
a live one. Like I've seen it where
yeah.
I think you can do it. I just don't know how. So maybe I'll get Indigo, but that would be I don't know how to set that. Then I
Poor
don't
Indigo. She's like, stop with
know.
me.
She's in BC, so it's a little bit harder to do. But yeah, maybe that might be easier to do so that people can do real time and they could just kind of join and ask their questions. But I need a moderator for that one. So
Yeah, that's the one thing that I was a little nervous of, putting a link publicly on the page. Um, just, like you said, there's good people and then there's other people that, I just was trying to also be mindful of and protective of you and the other members of the group and not encourage, everybody and their
yes.
cousin to come.
Yeah.
So something to think about. But if Indigo wants to work with me, I'm more than happy to. I'm going to volunteer Alyssa
Look,
as well.
it's not like she's not busy enough between selling
No.
her own book and teaching. Come
No.
on.
She's got
Come
nothing
on.
better to do.
She's a
Come on.
unicorn. She can do anything.
And everything. So,
You
so
know,
but if I
we
don't have a
always
chance,
have your back.
I know you will, but if I don't want to get cut up first, I just want to make sure I say thank you to everybody that came and that read the book. Really, it means so much to me that you're interested. So I do not want to be cut off before I had a chance to at least say how much I adore each and every one of you. And if you ever see me, can you just please say your name first and say